What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. One more sleep. It is officially Draft Eve. Guys, we are so close to the 2024 NFL Draft. I am so pumped. Make sure you're all tuned in tomorrow night to the channel. We will be live reacting to the first round draft picks on the channel live stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you guys there. But today, final preparations before the draft, final discussion about all these crazy rumors and smokescreens that keep coming out as we get closer and closer to draft time. Today we want to talk about Michael Penix Jr. And if you didn't see the reports, the rumors rather, Michael Penix Jr. to the Giants with the number 6 overall pick is one that's starting to heat up here with just a little over 24 hours to go before the draft. Now, I'll go ahead and say this right off rip. I believe that it's a smokescreen, but a lot of fans were mentioning us on social media and asking, what are your opinions if this becomes real? What if the Giants do take Michael Penix Jr. at number 6? So we want to give our opinions on that, and then also just kind of dive into how this draft could shape out for the Giants in the first round, and who our top prospects for the Giants in particular are. Because, you know, there's always going to be your big boards, and then there's going to be your team-specific big boards. We'll go through our big boards, which are going to be different than, you know, the team-specific ones are going to be different because we're not in favor of taking an offensive lineman early in the draft. But we'll go ahead and dive into all that and plenty more as we prepare for the NFL draft in this episode. But before we do so, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling about this Michael Penix Jr. rumor?
Wow, well, I'm doing pretty good, and on draft night tomorrow, I'm going to have two things next to me. It's going to be liquor, and it's going to be bleach. The liquor for when we draft Drake May, and for the bleach when we draft Michael Penix. That's the God-honest truth, guys. Michael Penix at 6. I don't know. If that comes to fruition, I won't have any words. I'm going to be speechless, to be quite honest with you, because that would be like shooting yourself in the foot. You know what I mean? It really would be. Now, it's not because I don't think Michael Penix is an okay player or a good player. It's because he has way too many red flags. You want to go from Daniel Jones, who you're trying to get out of this deal because of his injury history, to a player that you're going to ask who has 2 torn ACLs in the past, and an AC joint sprain, and another shoulder injury, and then have him play behind one of the worst offensive lines in football and on the MetLife turf. Yeah, sure. Let's see how that works out for us. That is like malpractice to its finest degree. If we were to do that, I would lose all faith in Joe Schoen straight up. It would make no sense. The Giants taking Michael Penix at 6 would be the dumbest thing I've seen. Dan Graziano posting that, like you said, that is an absolute smokescreen. I would be surprised if he went in the top 20 picks, let alone 6th overall. That was ridiculous. I just don't see it happening. I don't think he's that good. I think that, you know, his numbers out of the pocket are horrible. He's going to have to move out of the pocket. 80. Let me rephrase that. He had 80 rushing yards last year. 80. He does not run. I don't care how fast his 40-yard dash was. The dude does not run with the football in his hands. And if you're a Giants quarterback, you better get used to freaking running. And the fact that he doesn't have, and people say, you know, well, the fact that he is 2 years removed from those ACL tears, why do you think he hasn't gotten injured again? Because he hasn't freaking moved from the pocket. The second that he plays for the Giants and he's forced to run because he has no time in the pocket, he's going to get injured again because he has to move. He has to take those hits. I think that's just ultimately the result of playing for the Giants. You're going to get hurt at quarterback if you don't have good enough offensive line. I think the Giants are going to get better there, but until proven otherwise, we have the worst pass blocking unit in the league, and that's where I stand now. I'm tired of giving out handouts and projecting this to happen or that to happen, because the truth is that I need to see it with my own eyes before I believe it. And look, Michael Penix, like I said, I don't think he's a bad player. I think he has some good tools, but 6th overall would be the most ridiculous thing the Giants could do in this draft class. I think it is a total smokescreen. I think it's a way to make other teams believe that they are higher than him, the higher on Michael Penix, than maybe some people believe. I think it will convince some teams, or maybe at least try to sway some public opinion or even team opinions, where the Giants sit in this draft, who they're actually targeting. The most recent narrative is that they really want Drake May, move up to number 3, and then we hear, you know, the Patriots are not sure what they're going to do. They could stick and pick a quarterback, or they can move back and get draft capital. Couple teams going to be looking up to potentially move up, maybe the Raiders, Broncos, Vikings, and the Giants. The Giants obviously have the best pick to offer with the 6th overall pick, so if you're the Patriots, you're Arizona, you still walk away with a blue chip receiver, plus future draft capital. I mean, look, if the Patriots can say to themselves, we can add a 2025 first-round pick, we can add a blue chip receiver like a Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, that's a pretty good haul. Meanwhile, the Vikings can offer them 11 and 23. Two players that you're not getting a blue chip receiver, but you can add to, probably an offensive lineman or a decent receiver and a defensive weapon. So, I do think that there are avenues for New England. I think that they can reinforce their entire roster, which they desperately need. So I do think they ultimately end up trading back, despite all the rumors and whatnot. It just depends on who's willing to give up the most. And they keep saying we haven't gotten the offer that's wowing us just yet. Obviously, they're not going to say that they have an offer that they like, because that would destroy any leverage they have. Again, though, I'm going to rephrase it again. If Michael Penix is the pick at 6, I just don't got it. Look, I could get it at 20. I could get it at 25. I could get it at 32. But number 6 would be that would be a bigger reach than Daniel Jones, because not only are you inheriting a player with multiple torn ACLs, but you're putting him in a position that's the polar opposite of what he just had in college football. One of the worst offensive lines in football and one of the weakest receiving cores in football. So, yeah, I think going from one of the best offensive lines in college football, one of the best receiving cores, you're talking about 3 NFL caliber receivers, one of them being a blue chip prospect, to going to what the Giants have, it doesn't make any sense to me. It would be a massive step in the wrong direction. I just can't see it happening. I think it's total BS. Anthony, I think that probably answers your question, though.
Definitely answers my question. And before I go ahead and give my take on it, I just want to say I'm so ready for this to be over. I just want to know already, who are the Giants picking? Who are the Broncos picking? Who are the Vikings picking? I want it to be over with. I can't wait for tomorrow night for all of this to be settled so that we don't have to talk about rumors and speculation anymore. I want to talk about the cold, hard facts, who the Giants drafted, what we think of them, what we think they're going to do for this team in the future. I cannot wait for tomorrow night to finally end this crap. But it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, and it is worth acknowledging this rumor amongst others because, listen, what else are you going to do? Speculate about the NFL draft is really all you can do right now, and there are a lot of talking points here as we get into the NFL draft because it's important to speculate because not only are we doing this, the NFL teams are speculating as well. The whole entire NFL draft is a projection. You are trying to predict who's doing what, why they're doing it, and when they're doing it so that you can plan accordingly on what you want to do when it's your turn to make your calls. And that's what the New York Giants are doing right now. So whether you think that they are smoke screening Michael Penix, whether you think they're all in on Michael Penix, it's important to know either way because it is going to affect the way that they perceive other teams' draft picks and, of course, their own. But Michael Penix at number 6, I'll go ahead and give my take. I think that would be a bad reach considering his injury history. Now, I understand that that's become a steamy topic of debate. Michael Penix's injury history. I understand that it's been 3 years since he's had a significant injury. I 100% do understand that. But even still, my logic is the New York Giants have said openly, and the reports have indicated, that they are not moving off of Daniel Jones due to his performance. They're moving on from Daniel Jones due to his injury history. So to go from a guy with an injury history, and I understand Jones's injury history is more recent and more relevant than Michael Penix's, but to go from a guy with an injury history to another guy who has an injury history doesn't make an entire complete bit of sense to me. Now, there are things that I really like about Michael Penix. I am higher on Michael Penix than Alex through our conversations. I do think that he is worthy of taking in the back end of the first round. I think he's a day 2 prospect, but again, with quarterbacks, you like to have those 50-year options. I would be okay with the Giants trading up into the back end of the first round and taking him then. But taking him at number 6, that I can't so much get behind because I don't project that other teams are going to take him in the top 10. So you might as well trade out of the top 10 and then take Michael Penix if you are dead set on taking Michael Penix. Don't do the thing where you reach on a quarterback and force it just because you need a quarterback. That's what the Patriots did with Mac Jones. That's what the Steelers did with Kenny Pickett. That's what the Bears maybe did with Justin Fields. Maybe that wasn't the right prospect for them to trade up for with the Giants. Pick your example. There's been so many examples of it where teams feel desperate to get a quarterback, and so they reach on a prospect, they take the wrong one, and they regret it 3 years later. I don't want the Giants to be that team this year. The Giants are sitting in a beautiful position with the number 6 pick where they possibly could land a great quarterback prospect, but they're also sitting in an ugly situation where if they get desperate and they reach on a quarterback, they will harm this team for the next few seasons, and that's something that they need to avoid doing. And in my opinion, taking Michael Penix that early, when the draft projections and rumor mills have him going way later than a top 10 pick, it would be unwise of them to reach on him and take him with the number 6 overall selection. Now again, If you hit on the draft pick, it doesn't matter where you drafted them as long as they become a great player, right? So you can make that argument that Michael Penix, if he ends up becoming an all-pro, he looks like a steal with the number 6 overall pick. Absolutely true. But the odds of that happening and the chances of that happening and being good value, you have to stack that up as well. You have to take the risks, you have to take the pros, the cons, and do a cost-benefit analysis here. And if I'm the New York Giants, I'm not taking the injury-riddled history quarterback with the number 6 overall pick when there are much cleaner prospects on the board at that selection, whether you're talking about the quarterback position or elsewhere. I mean, listen, at number 6, you're talking about an elite playmaker. You can even be talking about some elite offensive line prospects that have a clean bill of medical history that you might want to take over Michael Penix. But again, I know he hasn't been injured in 3 years, but even still, if you're moving on from Daniel Jones due to injury, I don't think that you should take a quarterback that early in the draft who has an injury history. Alex mentioned some of the weaknesses of Michael Penix. He can't get out of the pocket. He's not very mobile. Those things are true, but I will acknowledge some of the strengths. The guy has a howitzer attached to his left shoulder. He throws absolute missiles, rockets. He's got great deep accuracy. He is aggressive, and he does play in a pro-style manner. He stands in the pocket, he beats you from the pocket, and he reads the football field, reads defenses at all 3 levels, makes the right throws, goes through his progressions, and reads. I love all of those things about Michael Penix Jr., and all of those things would indicate that he will have success at some degree in the NFL level. He will have his skill set translate because he does those NFL level things at a high level. But there are other limitations to his game, and that's why I don't view him as a top 10 pick. Limitations. In yesterday's episode, Alex, we were talking about potential with quarterback prospects. That's what I bank on in the top 10. I like guys with upside and potential. To me, Michael Penix Jr. will probably step in and have success more immediately than some of these other guys. But if you're talking potential and the way to maximize that potential, I don't feel like it is as high with Michael Penix Jr. as it is with some of these other quarterbacks that may be available in the top 10. So that's ultimately why I would avoid Michael Penix Jr. in the top 10. I just don't see the high-end potential compared to some of these other guys. There are limitations to his game, athletic limitations, ability to make plays off script and get out of the pocket, or even on script out of the pocket. Oftentimes, you're scrambling intentionally. He doesn't really make those plays outside of the pocket. So there are my concerns with Michael Penix Jr. If they do take him later in the draft, I will probably be happy about it. Probably happier than Alex, but I just would not be happy if they took him at number 6. I agree with you, Alex. I'd be very upset about that. You guys would see a very, very strong reaction out of the two of us in that upcoming live stream tomorrow night if the Giants take Michael Penix. But hey, if he ends up going on to have a Hall of Fame career with the Giants, I'll be happy about it in the end. And honestly, man, same way that it was with Daniel Jones. Fun fact, I was absolutely devastated when they took him with a number 6 overall pick. But 2 weeks later, I said, okay, I believe in him. He is my franchise quarterback, and that's who I'm going to support because he wears the New York Giants helmet. I will do the same if the Giants select Michael Penix Jr. with number 6. I just won't think that it's a good move, and I will be disappointed about it in the beginning. But hopefully he proves me wrong. That's what I'm going to hope for. I want the New York Giants to be successful. And hey, if that's who Brian Daboll believes in, I guess I'm going to have to believe with him. But moving on to some of these other scenarios that could play out in the first round of the NFL draft, Alex, I want to talk about like our big boards, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, because I think we've made it pretty clear for the Giants, realistically, number 1 on our unofficial big board would be UNC quarterback Drake May. But who follows behind him is more my question for you, Alex. How do you prioritize the players that might be available at number 6? And somewhere in there, where do you throw in a potential trade down? Who has to be off the board for you to consider that? That's my big question for you. But who are your big board targets for the New York Giants at number 6?
My big board targets, let's like assume that we just stay at 6 and like no trade ups or anything. I think my big board probably starts with Marvin Harrison Jr. and then goes to Malik Neighbors and then to Rome Odunze. The first 3 guys are going to be wide receivers for me. After that, let's assume like no quarterbacks. I'm just ignoring quarterbacks right now. After those guys, I'm probably looking at Joe Alt because at that point, like if you aren't going to get any of the top receivers, you might as well get the best offensive tackle in this draft class. And then, I know the Giants have spent so much. It's not my preference. This is obviously like a very low scenario probability happening. After Joe Alt, give me Brock Bowers. Maybe that's crazy. Every top quarterback that has won the Super Bowl has had an elite receiving option. Whether it be Gronk years ago or whether it be Travis Kelce. You know what I mean? Like these guys have been focal points for offenses, and that's partially why the Giants wanted to go get Darren Waller. Now, it seems like Darren Waller and his wife Kelsey Plum are getting divorced, or there's something going on there. Obviously, he'll give him his privacy in that scenario, but the Giants are waiting to see what he's going to do with his career and his future. Doesn't seem like he's coming back anytime soon, based on a lot of the reports and kind of rumors. But again, not sure what's going on there. I'm not going to speak on his behalf without knowing all the information. That's a very private situation on kind of unfolding. But great teams have great tight ends, and I ultimately feel as though if the Giants want to go and get a great tight end that they pass on the receivers, if they wanted to trade back to 8 or 9 and the top receivers were off the board, I'd take Brock Bowers at 8 or 9. I don't think that's that hot of a take. And now I would take Odunze over Bowers if he was there. Let me make that straight. But if those guys were gone, I would take Bowers at 8 or 9. I think that's, if we can move back, get Brock Bowers and add another second round pick to our draft collection, and we missed out on the other quarterbacks, and we had the opportunity to do that, I think I'd pull the trigger. We could walk away with Brock Bowers and 2 really valuable second-round picks where we could get a receiver and maybe a cornerback. I think that would be an excellent draft. Now you have your future at tight end for the next 5-6 years at the very least, and a player that was unbelievable for Georgia. And he is like the guy. If you asked anyone, any analyst, he is like the one guy everyone would say that guy's a generational player. Like, Caleb Williams, he's a big boomer bust. We don't know. Brock Bowers is like a generational talent on day one. If you want to go for the secondary option of him, though, not as good, obviously. I love Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. That's the guy I'd love in the mid rounds as a supplement. If you're not going to go top one, tier 1 at tight end at Brock Bowers, get me Ben Sinnott in the 4th round, or I'd even take him as early as the late 3rd. So I think that would be a good situation for the Giants. But my kind of big board right now, I'd have to go Marvin, Neighbors, Odunze, Joe Alt, and then Brock Bowers would be probably my top 5. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good list. I like that you included Brock Bowers in there because he is such an excellent talent at the tight end spot. And my thing with Bowers is he is more than a tight end. And I know that that's a little bit of a cliche and stale argument because it was made about Saquon Barkley, for example, for many years. He's more than just a running back. He's a playmaker. You could say that about a lot of guys. I do think it is aptly applied to Brock Bowers. He is a playmaker, not just a tight end. Because if you look at his stats and his alignment, most of the time he actually played in the slot as a slot receiver, similarly to how we saw his impact with Darren Waller last season. You could expect that impact and that level of versatility from Brock Bowers once he enters the NFL, and probably at a higher level because he is about 8 years younger than Darren Waller. So I love I love Brock Bowers' potential in the NFL, and I would like him. If I had to kind of off the dome give you my big board here, I'm going to say, of course, it's Drake May, number 1. Number 2 for me, I know that this is a little bit of a hot take, but you guys know that I'm higher on him the most, J.J. McCarthy. I still would support him with the number 6 pick. Number 3, then it's Malik Neighbors, another hot take of mine in this draft process. I am one of the few that prefers him over Marvin Harrison Jr. Then I'm going MHJ. Then I'm going Rome Odunze. Those are my big board players for the New York Giants. After those guys, I am looking to trade down if those guys aren't on the board. And in fact, I am looking to trade down if those top 4 guys aren't on the board, meaning if Marvin Harrison Jr. is off the board and it's just Rome Odunze or trading down, I want to trade down, and I have some statistics that I want to pull up to explain why. And it is about the hit rate of wide receivers on day 1 versus day 2 and 3 versus quarterbacks on day 1 and day 2 and 3. So if you're looking at the highest paid players at the wide receiver position in the NFL, 70% of them have been drafted on day 2. Top 10 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. On day 2 plus 3, so non-day 1 players, 80%. 8 out of the 10 top 10 highest paid wide receivers drafted after the first round. Only 20% of them in the first round. Now, if you want to take that further, expand the sample size, maybe top 10 is a little small, Alex. Top 29 wide receivers, highest paid in the NFL, only 31% of them are first round draft picks. The other 69/70% are day 2 and 3 draft picks. That tells you that the hit rate on first round wide receivers, not as good as you think it is. On day 2 and 3 wide receivers, it's much higher. So if you want to play the probability game based on that information and evidence, you want to trade down and add extra draft capital on day 2 and 3, and that's when you want to address the wide receiver position. Now, to take it a step further, not only do I want to talk about highest paid wide receivers, how about highest graded by Pro Football Focus? And I know PFF grades are not the end-all be-all, but let's just use it as a general baseline. First round wide receivers, the top 28 highest graded wide receivers in the NFL, only 43% of them were selected in the first round. 69% of them on non-day 2 selections, day 2 and 3. So 70% of the wide receivers in the NFL, the best ones, are basically day 2 and 3 selections. That tells you that that's where you really want to prioritize wide receivers. So for me, if those generational talents like Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. are not on the board, I'm aiming to trade it down. As much as I love Rome Odunze, let another team trade up for him and give you extra draft capital. Gain that extra picks, or those extra picks, move down, take your receiver on day 2 in what is a stacked wide receiver class. But the reason why I am higher on J.J. McCarthy is not only because I view the talent of J.J. McCarthy to be attractive, but also I view the prospects of taking a quarterback on day 1 to be attractive, and here's why. The top 18 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, 72% of them are first-round draft picks. Compare that to how it was 30% for wide receivers, guys. That is a huge disparity. And if you want to go through the highest graded quarterbacks in the NFL last season, according to PFF, 61% of the top 18 highest graded were first-round draft picks. Only 39% of them were found on days 2 and 3. So there's my whole spiel on it. This is why tomorrow when we're doing the draft live stream, I'm going to be hoping that it's a quarterback. Again, I know that many of you in the comment section are going to say that you disagree, and that's okay. I respect that opinion. Sometimes it is the best idea to take the best player available, which likely will be a Malik Neighbors. And I will not complain if it's a Malik Neighbors, but I do think it's important to acknowledge the recent history of the NFL draft, the best players in the league at their positions and where they were drafted. 80% of the highest paid wide receivers being taken on days 2 to 3, 70% of the highest graded on days 2 to 3 at wide receiver. That tells me that that's when you should be prioritizing wide receiver. And again, I know that there are special exceptions to that rule. Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. are probably the special exceptions to that rule. Those are guys that you take that early. But I'm going QB tomorrow. If I'm the New York Giants, I'm doing everything that I can to get one based on the way that they make their money and where they get drafted and everything else in between. But yeah, there's going to be my big board and my thought process behind it and my evaluation of the top of this draft class for the New York Giants. Alex, before we wrap this, what are your takeaways to those stats and those findings that I had this morning about where top quarterbacks and top wide receivers were drafted, and how does that kind of reframe or reshape your thought process on where the New York Giants should go in the first and second round of the draft?
I mean, it's a really good kind of question, and it's really, you did a good job kind of describing how receivers oftentimes can miss in the first round, and the probability of hitting on a receiver is what was it, 20% lower than hitting on a quarterback. So everyone that's like, we need to take this blue chip receiver, we need to take this guy, you're actually getting worse odds at this guy actually hitting, which is interesting, because now you have to ask yourself, why are these receivers not hitting? Maybe it's not because they're not talented. Maybe it's because they're going to a team that doesn't have a quarterback that can maximize them. Maybe they're going to an offense that doesn't actually maximize their skill set. We've seen the Giants churn through players because they were not proper fits for us. So with that being said, this is a unique situation because this draft class is that strong. Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors probably have the highest probability of hitting of any receiver we've seen in a long time. Those three guys have unique skill sets. They are very, very good. That does not mean they're going to hit, though. There's a chance that one or two of all of them could not reach the expectations that have been set forth. And to be quite frank with you, Anthony, the expectations for them right now are all pro. Everybody thinks those three guys are all pro caliber players. I'd be willing to bet that two of those three guys will never make an all pro team. You know what I mean? And that's probably the way that it ends up going. And because it's to the team they go to the scheme they go to, it could be to injuries. It could be to any variable. Nobody's ever guaranteed. And you kind of did a good job listing all those receivers that were second to late round draft picks. Tyreek Hill, 5th round draft pick. Deebo Samuel, was it 2nd round draft pick? DK Metcalf, 2nd round draft pick. Cooper Kupp, 2nd round. Do I have to keep going? No, I don't think so. So with that being said, if the Giants wanted to be aggressive, get their quarterback, wait until the 2nd round, get a Keon Coleman, get a Ricky Pearsall, maybe even Ladd McConkey's there early on. They could trade up and get him because he's going to be a monster in my opinion. Xavier Legette. There's going to be players there that end up becoming very good NFL players in the right system, with the right offense and the right scheme, with the right coaching, and they're going to blow away expectations. And that's going to be, it happens every year. Every single year we see it. The Giants just haven't been able to find that guy. By the way, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's going to very much, make that 2nd round draft grade look very, very good this upcoming year. I think that he's going to showcase that level of production and value as long as he can stay healthy. But with that being said, just because you pass on a receiver in the 1st round does not mean you're going to fail to find a WR1 in the 2nd round. In fact, the probabilities lately suggest that you have better odds of finding a WR1 in the second round than the first round. So it's kind of interesting. You know, I think some players just can't live up to the hype. They can't live up to the expectations. And it is what it is. But this draft class is ridiculously deep at both quarterback and receiver. You could argue it's much deeper at receiver because of just the amount and the volume of players there. So if you're the Giants, you prioritize the position that has the highest probability, or rather, I guess the position that you have the most conviction in. And ultimately, if they love Drake May, if they love JJ McCarthy, if they love one of these quarterbacks, you prioritize quarterback because it's the most important position in sports. Wide receiver always comes secondary to quarterback. We talked about this on yesterday's podcast. Who were the last 5 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks? Mahomes, Stafford, Tom Brady. You need a star quarterback. If the Giants feel as though they can find a guy and develop that level of talent into a guy that can be a star, that can lead him to a Super Bowl, you have to take the swing. You have to take the chance. And people in my comments yesterday saying, well, the Washington Commanders have been trying to do that for years. May I remind you, the Washington Commanders have ownership issues. They have field issues. They have plumbing issues. They have coaching issues. They have everything under the sun is a problem for the Washington Commanders, not the fact that they've been trying to find a quarterback. I mean, Sam Howell was a mid-round pick. RG3 was on his way to becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the league before his injury took hold, and he just went downhill from there. Carson Wentz was pretty good for them for a minute. I do think that right now, you know, you look at where the Giants are, we have one of the best quarterback coaches. And by the way, I just sent in a request for a graphic. This is what Drake May just said about Brian Daboll. Coach Daboll, you've seen what he's done with quarterbacks. They've got a good thing going. Quarterbacks know that Brian Daboll knows how to get the most out of them, guys. I mean, Drew Lock came here and said, I love to be here. Brian Daboll's a freaking QB wizard. Quarterbacks, professional quarterbacks, not fans on their couch, professional quarterbacks continuously verbally acknowledge how good of a coach Brian Daboll is for quarterbacks. Why the hell would the Giants not give him the guy that he needs to become a star when everyone is in the same boat that actually knows what they're talking about, that Daboll is known for his development of quarterbacks? I don't know why the Giants would ignore that. Michael Penix doesn't seem like the right pick for me at 6. Do whatever it takes to get Drake May because he's a ball of clay, tangible attributes. Get your receiver in the second round, and you walk away happy from this draft class with the future in place and financial freedom in 2025 and beyond when Daniel Jones' contract is so far off the books, we can't even see it in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I mean, we're in agreement, and listen, like I said, I'm just excited for this to be over with. We've already given our opinions, and now we're just kind of reinforcing them. I thought it was a fun exercise to go through day 1 versus 2 and 3 wide receivers and quarterbacks, look at the hit rate of that. They're eye-opening numbers, and they do tell you what the Giants should do in the first and second and third rounds of this year's draft. But furthermore, there's just a lot of rumors going around right now. It's really tough to dictate which way each NFL team is going. The only thing that we know for certain, Caleb Williams is a number 1 pick. After that, who the hell knows? Maybe Drake May goes number 2 to the Washington Commanders. Maybe they've been smoke screening the Jaden Daniels thing this entire time. Who knows? We will see. It's going to be really interesting and fun tomorrow night to live react to that. But Alex, last question that I'm going to ask you. Brief response is all I need for this. Who's the pick? Are the Giants trading up and taking somebody, or are they sticking to picking number 6, and who's that player?
I mean, they're moving up. They're moving up to get their guy. Everything, the logic, everything, all the research I've done, all the diving into the contracts I've done with Daniel Jones, there is nothing in my mind that is convincing me this Giants team is not drafting a quarterback. If they don't, I would be very surprised because you're pushing off the most important question, the most essential question. You're pushing it into the future in a draft class next year that is expected to be extremely weak, to a free agency class that is expected to be extremely weak. You're pushing a question, an essential problem, into the future when you have a chance to solve it right now. You don't do that. You offer whatever it takes to get your guy, because in the end of the day, if they can make Drake May a star, no one's going to give 2 shits what it took to give up. That's the truth. So guys, that's my official take. That is my final take. It is going to stay that way. The Giants make the most important decision in finding their quarterback because it is the only decision to make. If they wait, if they push off the problem until later, the problem's just gonna eat us alive again in the future. It is what it is. It's just a problem. And quarterback, we lose games because we don't have the right quarterback, and that's really what it's been. Now you have Daniel Jones coming off an ACL tear plus his contract. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible situation if you keep him, because there is no future with him on this team at quarterback. There is none. It's none. And I've done all the research, guys. I mean, if you disagree with me, that's fine. I respect your opinion. I just cannot wrap my head around it. And unfortunately, that does lead me to believe the Giants, or fortunately for me, that the Giants are going to be taking a quarterback. I think they're going to be aggressive. Joe Schoen has shown that aggression before. We just saw him trade a pick for Brian Burns. We've seen him do it for Josh Allen. We've seen him move picks for Darren Waller. He is not afraid to use draft capital to get the guy that he thinks can change this offense for the better. He's going to make that move. I just think it's a matter of when. And as you said, the Giants know the stats better than we do. Wide receivers in the second round, they bang. So let's go get one.
There you go. That's assuming the Giants keep their second round pick. If they do trade up for quarterback, that's going to be the real difficulty here and the part that gives me caution in this whole equation. But my final prediction, I won't go on as long. I'm just going to say I think you're right on the logic of trading up for quarterback. I think the Giants are going to try to. I think they're going to fail. I think the New England Patriots are going to take Drake May, and the Giants are going to take Malik Neighbors at number 6. That is my final prediction. But hey, more to come. With tonight, live stream, talking about the draft, previewing it, Merry Draft Eve, and of course tomorrow during the draft we will be live, and maybe we'll even hit you with an episode tomorrow morning to lock in some of our final predictions, but just wanted to get that out there before we wrap up this episode, and hey, it's finally here, guys. We are over. We are out of the dark ages. The light is at the end of the tunnel. See you guys tomorrow. Can't wait for it. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.